morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love. Good, good, good morning, sun. Good, good, good morning. Good, good morning. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love. Good, good, good morning, sun.
And welcome to the global headquarters of my home office, planet Earth. Thought I'd try something new. Thought this was kind of cool looking. So, yeah, kind of neat. Can do all sorts of crazy stuff with this video production equipment and software. So, hello, welcome. Today is Friday, July 23rd, and as always, everything here is subject to change based on the very rapid pace of everything in the world. And hello, is it Reno? Sorry if I got it wrong. And Mo, welcome. Come on in and pull up a chair. Okay, so how do I switch out of this space station drifting thing? There we go. Okay, so today I'd like to talk about code signing certificates for AppSource. And what is this? Why do we need it? How do you deal with this requirement? And etc. So this is just as I'm looking into it, learning. I've been aware of this. Like I've known for years there was a thing called a code signing certificate, but I've never had to purchase one. I've always just delivered custom software to a specific customer, and or even things that I sell. They've never needed code signing certs. It just wasn't an issue. Reno, welcome Belgium. I had on my vacation. Side note, I had a Stella Artois, the Belgian beer we just call Stella here in the U.S. It's didn't have a lot of options where I was at, so I grabbed that one, and it did get the approval of Waldo. So I assume that means I was drinking a legitimate, good Belgian beer. So hats off to Belgium for their beer. Okay, so back to code signing certs. What is this? Let's talk about that. So if you are not familiar, Erik Hogard, excuse me. I always say Hugard because of the U.S. interpretation of how his name is spelled, but I realize he pronounces it Hogard. So Erik Hogard has many, 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 many YouTube videos with excellent discussions of Business Central development topics, usually very development and technical related. So he has done a series. Hold up, let me turn off this globe. It's very distracting. He has done a series called Let's Put an App on AppSource, where he literally walks through the entire process of getting an app compiled, getting it set up, and submitting it, and getting it on the AppSource portal. So I've started to watch that. And one of the things that he discusses is the technical validation checklist. So if you're interested in publishing something to AppSource, or even if you're doing PTEs, there may be some good practices in here. But in order to have your app successfully published in AppSource, you have to complete or follow nearly all, if not all, of the items in this technical validation checklist. And some of these, I say nearly all, because a few of these appear to be outdated and they may not be enforced anymore. But let's just suppose most of them are. One of them, which Erik didn't specifically discuss, it looks like he just kind of worked from the bottom half of the list, kind of. He talked about some of the things, but one of the things that jumped out at me, because I've never done it before, is This one here highlighted in green, the app file must be digitally signed. Okay, I've done development for years. I understand that in concept, but I've never done it. And so there's a page that says signing an app file, an app package file. It's like, okay, what does this mean? So if you click through to that link and you go to the signing an app package file page, there is kind of a, not vague, but it's a general statement and it's worded kind of a strange way, and it doesn't necessarily provide you with the specific details on obtaining a certificate. It talks about what you do with it and a command you run to apply that certificate. Excuse me. But I'm more interested in, like, how do I buy one of these things? How do I shop for it? What am I looking for? Now, the statement here is a little odd. It is recommended that you use a certificate purchased from a third-party certificate authority. Now, unless I'm misunderstanding the entire CA, the certificate authority ecosystem, it is not recommended. It is absolutely required that you purchase a certificate from a trusted certificate authority. You just have no choice unless you are the certificate authority, like Microsoft maybe. Yeah, so that was weird language. I was a little puzzled by that. But then notice right below that, the app package file must be signed using a certificate purchased from a certification authority that has its root certificates in Microsoft Windows. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone, I don't know of any buddies, and I personally do not have any root certificates in Windows. So I think this needs to be reworded. Now, maybe I'll send him a comment saying, hey, this isn't recommended, it is required. So you can obtain a certificate from a range of certificate providers, including but not limited to GoDaddy, DigiCert, and Symantec. See the image below where they show you a screenshot of the certificate store on a Windows machine. And I thought, that's interesting. GoDaddy. Okay, let's look into that. So you may be fine with GoDaddy. You may not be a fan of GoDaddy. I've had a few challenges with them, and I know others who have. So they're not really the first on my list of hosting providers or certificate authorities that I would prefer to work with. It's just difficult to navigate the website, difficult to get to the customer service department that you may need. It can be challenging. So I went to their website and said, oh, do they even issue these? Starting June 1, 2021, GoDaddy will no longer issue or renew code signing certificates. So that settles that. Not a good recommendation, so I will also submit that to the docs team to have them update that. So the docs also listed Symantec. So I searched for Symantec code signing certificates. I could not find any direct website to purchase a certificate directly from Symantec. It appears they are only sold through third-party certificate resellers, and more on that later. So I found this first one. And the description seemed kind of legitimate, but it has some weird phrases like, for software publishers of active content. What does that mean? Code signing reduces error messages. If that were true, every developer would buy one on day one. I'm just saying. And builds trust in your reputation. So it's kind of like, marketing talk about certificates. Reduce the cost of maintaining code with a free timestamp. Like, what does that even mean? And so it appears that Symantec certificates, like a few others I'll explain, are only sold through resellers. And if you pay close attention to the websites, like, you get a kind of a strange feeling. Here's another reseller, CodeSign Cert. They resell a couple brands, one of which is Symantec. So if you look at this page, it looks like a hot mess with all these arrows and dollar signs and seals and like colors. It's like, what am I looking at? If you look carefully, you will notice this language. Influence users view with trust and confidence on your code as well as reputation with a Symantec code signing certificate. It offers the toughest authenticate technology and verification to protect code and content of the software. Clearly translated content from as a US resident, I'm assuming this is not a native US company. Like questionable grammar. Do I really want to pay $3.99 a year for a certificate through a reseller that has this? Like, I don't know. It's kind of suspicious. It's like, I want a Rolex watch. Do I want to buy it from the guy with the cart in the alley in Midtown Manhattan in New York? Probably not. So more on that later. So I said, okay, well, maybe that Business Central code signing certificate page is not the greatest resource, and I'm happy to offer some input to help update that. So I did another search and I found this. This is the Windows driver code signing certificate instruction page. These are like the hardware drivers. So, you know, they kind of know what they're doing. They've been doing this for years, and it looks like this is a more current or a little more accurate representation of the current state of the code signing certificate world. And they say you can buy one from one of the certificate authorities below, and they list 6 websites. And you'll notice that each of these are pointing directly to the certificate provider. Like if I buy an SSL.com EV certificate, it is from SSL.com. It is issued by them as a CA. Sectigo, formerly Komodo, issued by them. They are the CA. This is not listing, you know, super SSL certreseller.com. So here are 6 options that appear to be legitimate providers of the certificates directly from them. And you will find their names listed in the Windows certificate store as the authorities, trusted authorities. Great. So when I looked at these, I found something else strange. Like, what is going on here? And this is for what is called the standard code signing certificate, not an EV, or I think it's extended validation certificate, which is more rigorous, both in the validation of your entity as a software publisher and more rigorous in terms of the controls that are placed around the certificate. For instance, the ones that I saw, you had to have a hardware token in order to store the certificate. You could not just download a cert and store it locally with a password type of thing. So more rigorous standards on the EV side. Now, I'm assuming we do not need EV for Business Central. I asked about that, and I don't think we do. I think a standard code signing cert is fine for us. So DigiCert, $4.99. SSL.com, $129. What's going on there? It's almost 4 times more expensive through DigiCert. And then kind of in between, we have Global Sign and Sectigo. Now there is Certum. They appear to be Europe-centric or Europe-based. Their prices are in euros. So if you're in Europe, maybe Certum is a better choice. I kind of ruled them out because I want US dollar denomination. And Intrust just says contact sales. They have 0 pricing. For something at this price level, I don't quite understand that model. Like, it should be a commodity. So I'm not sure what their business model is. I'm not going to bother to contact them for a certificate. So I have 4 choices: DigiCert, Global Sign, Sectigo, SSL. Why wouldn't I go with SSL? Like, what does it matter? It's a cert. It's not like, you know, I'm buying a car or a Rolex watch. So how do you choose a cert vendor? I honestly don't know. Other than the reseller, the reseller websites appear to be kind of shady. Trust, reputation, identity, customer service. And how do you know how good they are before you buy and before you encounter an issue? I don't know. But so I started looking into this, and I looked at my local Windows certificate store, and I'm like, well, they're all listed here. So what difference does it make? I see Komodo, I see DigiCert, I see Entrust, I see Global Sign, and I see SSL.com. We see GoDaddy, but we know those are no longer sold. So what difference does it make? But then I looked, I was like, look at DigiCert. DigiCert Assured ID Root CA, DigiCert Global Root CA, G2, G3, High Assurance EV Root. Like, that's interesting. That's a little different. Whereas SSL.com, there's only one entry, and it's SSL.com EV Root Certification Authority. So there's some difference going on. It's like DigiCert may have put a little more effort in this, or is a different structure. I'm not sure. I wasn't sure when I saw this. So who do you choose? And so I asked on Twitter, like, okay, anyone using certs? Who are you using? So Martin said he's been using Sectigo, formerly Komodo, for years, fine. Now, I've used Komodo certificates on, I think, all of my hosted websites. It's just who they use. So I'm familiar with their name. I've always received them through my website hosting company as the reseller. I don't know that I've had much interaction directly with Komodo other than validation or downloading the cert. And it's been fine. It hasn't, I'm not a fan of SSL certs. It's not a pleasant experience to deal with the different formats and all the stuff you need to put them on different platforms, but that's SSL certs. So, okay. So Camille has also used Sectigo. Mohana is using DigiCert. Then I believe Erik mentions in his video he uses DigiCert. Then Martin also said the resellers. He chose a reseller and it seemed pretty shady. And that's exactly the impression I get. The resellers are sketchy and it's just not even worth my effort. I'll pay the $129 instead of $99 or whatever the difference is. They're not necessarily even cheaper. I'd rather go direct to the source with the hopes of having better customer support and problem resolution. And then Daniel mentioned there was a third-party offer for Microsoft MVPs where, and if you're not familiar, there are companies who offer free software or services or whatever to Microsoft MVPs, presumably with the hope of, branding and marketing and promotion, which it is effective, I will admit. And many of those are very good companies, so I'm happy to recommend many of them. So he mentioned that. So I said, let me look into that. So back to the question, is DigiCert better? Well, when I saw this, it's like, well, what does that mean? They're different with these entries. So let me look that up. And kind of interesting. So DigiCert has a knowledge-based article. Great start, right? They seem to have a good website with lots of information. And they talk about root compatibility. And it says that these different certs, these root CA certs, have different signature algorithms. So SHA-1, which is presumably the older certificates. Then we go to G2, which is 256. G3 is 384. And then they have High Assurance EV, it was SHA-1. And then I don't know what those last two refer to, but they have different levels of certificates, I guess, based on the signature algorithm. Now, I don't know that the G3 is necessarily like any better than a G2. My understanding is SHA 256 should be perfectly adequate, but it is interesting that they have this type of breakout, something that I didn't see with the other providers. So why would I choose DigiCert and pay more, pay the 3 times, 4 times more than, say, SSL.com? And this is just kind of a generic statement, market leading tools and platforms, APIs, PKI management, enterprise support, response time, and who their customers are. So they have some big name customers. And so, maybe they are like the legit go-to place for enterprise customers. So if you're running a $2 billion business, you don't care if the cert is $499 or $129. You're going to go for the $499 and happily pay that if that provides you with even slightly better customer service or reliability. Like, it makes total sense. It's not worth having some problem that costs your company $50 million before you get that cert resolution, cert issue resolved. So it makes total sense. So I'm left with these 4 choices. Now, it turns out DigiCert is the one that has the MVP program, which I'll mention or I'll explain later. But if it were just me, which I may just go ahead and do it and compare them, and maybe I'll do a follow-up video. So we have people using DigiCert, people using Sectigo. I didn't find anyone yet who used global sign in SSL.com. Is there a difference? I don't know. And for BC, it's for a BC app to go into marketplace. You're not distributing it on the Windows Store platform. You're not doing hardware driver signing. So I don't know how critical this is for our particular use case. So just for reference, this is what it looks like on the DigiCert portal. And I don't know how other vendors do it. I don't know if they have a portal like this. This may be a differentiator. So if you're managing 50 certs, DigiCert may have a real competitive advantage here. If I buy from SSL.com, I don't know what the management tools are yet. I may purchase one just to see what it's like. So they have a very nice dashboard. I emailed customer support, got a response with less than 24 hours. So all positive. And so you go in here, I click on request a certificate at the top, and it's very similar to an SSL certificate request. I choose my organization. I can define multiple organizations, which is what I'll need to publish for different companies. And organizational unit, very much like an SSL cert request. Validity period, 1, 2, 3 years, custom expiration date. And I'm assuming this also affects the price you pay, like 1 year is $4.99, 2 years, maybe they charge $4.75 a year, whatever. I'm assuming it's easier to just go with 3 years and just pay for that up front if you know you're going to need it, so you're not having to renew every year. And then you can choose the hash. So we saw on their, in the Windows Certificate Store, they had the 256, 384, and a couple other options. I think in my case, when I clicked on this, all I had was the 256 option. So I don't know if the next step up is for EV or how that works. And there is a CSR here, a certificate something request. It's the same thing I do for SSL certs, so I need to find a CSR request template and fill that out. It's just organizational information is my recollection. And then you submit this, you choose the platform type, and they have Adobe Air, OS X, Microsoft Authenticode, and Sun Java, Office VBA, Mozilla. I'm assuming we do Authenticode, and I found here in the BC docs, see Authenticode. They don't directly say use it, but they reference it here, so I'm assuming that's what we need. Then you submit this request, and presumably that gets processed. From what I saw in the sign-up process, they will call you in order to validate your identity, that you are part of the company, that your company is legitimate, check your website, things like that. I don't know what other background checks they do. I don't think it's terribly thorough on the standard cert. On an EV, it is supposedly more thorough. And then presumably you get your certificate. Now, once you get your certificate, this is your signature. This is how you sign your code. And you do not want anyone else getting your certificate or your keys, because then someone who has malicious intent could sign your code. And this has happened. Private keys have been compromised or exposed or whatever. And malicious actors, hackers, whatever, they have signed applications to get past the Windows certificate validation process, and malware is then released. So then they have certificate revocation processes. They have to negate that certificate. The publisher has to re-sign everything with a new cert, republish. It's a bit of a mess. So you do want to take care of this. Now, I've used SSL certs, same concept, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm not going to go too crazy. They talk about best practices like physically secure key storage device in a lock container. So that would be your EV certs, where you get the hardware token device. and they talk about just storing everything securely. And there also are platforms, I think it's called like EHR or some weird acronym, like Azure has it. Azure Key Storage has a secure enclave service where the code signing certificate can be placed in there online as a SaaS solution as well. So there is that option. So I'm trying to figure out how this all works. I think that's only available for EV certs though. So with that, that is the overview of what I've learned for code signing certificates so far. Sorry, just had lunch. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I'm going to see if I can get the free cert through DigiCert. I'm going to give that a try, and I'll probably also buy one through SSL.com. Just compare the experience, try to sign both, see if it matters. Maybe I'll submit one app to AppSource with a DigiCert, then submit my update using the SSL.com cert, see if both get accepted. If so, I mean, if you don't want to spend a lot of money, you're independent, whatever, then the SSL.com cert may be perfectly fine. But if you're really concerned about trustworthiness, support, and all the extra features other than the cert itself, then DigiCert appears to be kind of the gold standard or the premium product in the marketplace. So with that, have a great Friday and enjoy your weekend. Okay, have a good one. How do I get out of here?
Good morning, sun.